Let's discuss about one more new tool, one more new strategy, one more new pipeline for deploying our machine learning models. As part of the series of deployment, we have been discussing about various things. We are trying to skill ourselves in the various insights, various tools, various strategies on deployment of a machine learning model. We have been discussing about the frameworks. We have been discussing about the readily available tools like Heroku, Streamlit, etc. And we've also seen how to deploy a machine learning model on cloud platforms. The last video that we have discussed was with respect to AWS platform, and we discussed about Beanstalk. On the same lines, today we will be discussing about another platform, which is Azure platform. So Azure is a cloud platform offered by Microsoft, and Azure is very tightly or closely competing with AWS in the cloud arena. And Azure also provides a lot of readily available solutions for dealing with machine learning deployments and machine learning developments, basically. So without any further delay, let us jump into the session. Hope you are enjoying the sessions. Please do leave your comments as we mentioned in the previous sessions as well. You might want to leave your comments, feedback on various other tools and techniques that you want us to bring up. Any new tool, you can let me know. I will try to explain that as part of the series. That way, you're also going to help others in our community, data science community. So without any further delay, let us jump into the session. And before I begin, pardon my voice. I have a throat infection. I'm just recovering from it. So you might see some kind of voice modulations, which are completely strange. I sometimes sound very strange to myself. So please bear with me on that, and let us begin the session. So today we are going to talk about Azure platform. And within Azure, we basically speak about Azure Kubernetes Service. This is basically a container service, which is in-house for Azure Kubernetes. Kubernetes is basically a service which does the management of Docker images, Docker containers that we are creating. So let us try and understand how AKS will actually help us to deploy the machine learning model. Now, we can try and use other services like machine learning service directly, which is available in Azure. I'll be briefly talking about it, but we are not doing Azure ML here. But that is also one of the services that we can use for deploying the machine learning models for endpoints. This is the framework that we are going to look at. The data that we are going to use can come and reside in Azure storage. And then from there, we will be able to try and connect with the Azure ML service. And this pipeline will enable us to connect with the data. You can, in place of Azure storage, you can also try and use any database services which are on cloud platforms, Azure database services as well. And ultimately, it becomes your data repository from where the ML services can consume the data. And once the data is made available, the ML workflow begins, which does the data analytics part, then data pre-processing. And as part of the job, we do the training. We also do the test of the model, right? All that can be done on VMs, Microsoft VMs itself. And Once this machine learning model is ready, we can also Dockerize it using the container concept. And that can be done using your Azure Container Registry. This is again an in-house service that we have in Azure. This is like your Azure Docker Hub, you can imagine. So we are trying to create the container image with CI/CD pipeline implemented in it. And from there, using the Kubernetes services, we are going to run the container image on the self-managed Kubernetes services. So all the cluster required servers are automatically managed by this AKS. We call this as AKS in short. And your endpoints are basically given to the end users. That's how the functionality of machine learning model can be implemented. I will be focusing predominantly in this area. I'll not be talking about this as part of our discussion today. This is pretty straightforward and simple. I don't have to elaborate these steps, but if you want to still further learn about this, you can always look into our ML on Cloud videos, where we will be discussing about Azure ML Studio. Again, in ML Studio, you have designer and ML auto ML implementations. Two different options are there in Azure ML services. You might want to look into those videos to understand how this flow can be accomplished. So for our discussions, we will be first trying to look at the machine learning model, which is trained and ready. Okay, the model is trained. It could be on VMs of cloud, it could be on local premise, that's immaterial of that. I have a machine learning model which is ready. I will be using the same model which we have discussed in our previous session, machine learning model, which is a regression-based model, multiple linear regression. Where our target variable is fuel efficiency. We are trying to predict the fuel efficiency of a vehicle given the input factors like the engine type, its speed, right? Its horsepower, etc. If you want to learn more about the data set and the machine learning model itself, again, refer back to the videos in the series, in the playlist of the same series. You will be able to get to do the discussion in the initial sessions. So I will be using that saved model, the machine learning model. The first step would be I will be Dockerizing that, and I will be verifying the Docker image on my local instance. Okay, that's the first step. We'll be doing that. And then post that, the Docker image has to be registered with the container service of Azure. And from there, we will be deploying that on AKS service or AKS as Kubernetes services, so that we get the endpoints made available for end users.